The latest in a relentless wave of zombie hits from Capcom, the Resident Evil 2 remake slopped its way onto shelves last month and seeded the nightmares of a whole new generation of gamers. Old fans can also expect plenty of spookums too, since a number of very deliberate changes have been made to the 1998 survival horror classic. Indeed, the franchise as a whole has evolved and reshaped itself immensely since the heady days of the Jill sandwich, and the previous foray into the somewhat irresponsible business practices of Umbrella Corp was actually presented as an FPS, which is about as far removed as you can get from the fixed camera angles of the Spencer Mansion. So, with such variety across the series thus far, and a hugely anticipated remake currently spreading insomnia across the globe, I'd call this the opportune moment to revisit the core numbered games 0 to 7 and treat ourselves to another look at the very biggest pant-wetters, blood freezers, and I'm never playing that level ever againers. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 scariest Resident Evil moments of all time. Number 10. All the jump scares. Just wanted to get this quick bundle entry out of the way first because I was finding it so hard to pick a standout jump scare from the franchise that I just immediately broke all the rules and threw a bunch of them in together. Sure, the obvious standalone choice could have been Resident Evil 1's iconic dog windows, but it would be wrong not to pay remembrance to the soiled underwear casualties of Resi 2's Liquor Mirror, the action movie entrance of Nemesis in 3, and Leon Kennedy's hot date with Oven Man. Hello, yes, I'll have a 4-pack of clean pants, please. Number 9. The first zombie, Resident Evil. No matter how acclimatized to the undead we may have become after literally decades of horror media, I'm of the opinion that year after year, there's always something deeply disturbing about the first on-screen zombie in any given movie or game, even today. And the advanced guards of each Resident Evil installment are no exception. From the subtle creepiness of the Ganado who, when addressed by Leon, turns around in the wrong direction, to the full-on shambling corpses of the Resi 2 opening FMV in all their uncanny valley glory. However, surely the crown has to go to the first zombie of the first installment of the first true survival horror experience in video gaming. This guy is still genuinely quite unsettling to this day, and I honestly think that in spite of his mascara, what the hell, his wide-eyed stare actually makes him even more frightening than his Resident Evil remake counterpart. One look and you know this dude is about to ruin your day. Number 8. The Village, Resident Evil 4. While we're on the subject of the inappropriately clockwise turning Ganado from Resi 4, I cannot begin to express how unnerved I truly felt the first time I ventured into this Spanish mountain settlement. I received this game as a Christmas present, totally unaware of its existence, so I went in completely blind, and for one brief moment I recall a sense of confusion and perhaps even disappointment upon realizing that these enemies were not your traditional Umbrella zombies. What a letdown. However, the Ganados were something a whole lot worse. These are just people. Homicidally insane people. There's no reasoning with them, and yet to their advantage, they can move quickly, use weapons, and communicate with each other in a language I can't understand. Brilliant. For some reason, I've always thought one of the creepiest parts of the early cutscene in which Leon barricades himself in this house is the fleeting shot of two villagers running past the window carrying a ladder. Two zombies cannot carry a ladder together, but two crazy farmers with murderous intent can. And I personally found that absolutely bone-chilling. Number 7. The voice acting, Resident Evil 1. Oh, it's a wild card entry, didn't see this one coming. You're welcome to skip ahead if you only want sincere spooks from this list, but I defy anyone to deny that one of the scariest parts about the first game is that this voice acting ever made the cut.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
And I'm not even talking about the wording itself. It's the voice actor's actual delivery of an already terrible script that makes things just so much worse. For me, the line that typifies just how abysmal this cast is has to be the bizarrely staggered delivery of,
"Whoa, this hall is dangerous. There must be a back door somewhere. Let's try to find it first, shall we?
I crave the sweet embrace of death. Number 6. Meet the Leeches, Resident Evil 0. As far as horror is concerned, I reckon there's a special kind of middle ground where if a moment is pretty scary, though not scary enough for a top 10 list, but also totally revolting in every conceivable way, it's actually in with a pretty good chance of making the cut. And your first meeting with Resident Evil 0's leech zombies typifies that for me. I mean, from the get-go, the shot of this guy just sitting in his chair definitely puts the willies up me. Very nicely framed and incredibly foreboding, but this man promptly falls to pieces and erupts into a mass of slimy leeches, which then gradually transition from reconstituted sausage into the fully formed shape of the Umbrella researcher who first engineered them, becoming what is officially known as a mimicry Marcus. How lovely. How completely lovely. How completely... Number 5, The Keeper's Journal, Resident Evil 1. Back to subtler scares for a moment now. No mutants, living dead, or walking poo-poos here. Put your clever specs on, because we're going to do some reading. The Keeper's Journal is a diary found in the first game, which documents the slow descent into zombiehood of an unfortunate, infected man. The writer's notes begin in a relatively unremarkable manner, simply bemoaning the fact that after an accident in the lab, all staff have been asked to wear protective clothing that he describes as being akin to a spacesuit. Within a few days though, his back becomes swollen and itchy, and after visiting the medical bay, the doctor says that he can go back to dressing as normal. As the journal entries continue, the Keeper's condition starts to deteriorate as he develops blisters and a fever, and the itching becomes incessant. The story peaks in the final few entries when, while scratching at his itchy infection, the Keeper is shocked to see a lump of rotten flesh come away in his hand. Then the following day, he simply writes, "Fever gone, but itchy, hungry and eat doggy food. Itchy, itchy, Scott came, ugly face so killed him, tasty." And with his mind completely succumbing to the T-virus, the Keeper's final scribble into the journal is an undated page that simply reads, "For, itchy, tasty." Leech zombies and jump scares are one thing, but reading a first-person account of what it's like to turn into a conscious corpse is up there with the series' most blood-curdling moments. Number 4, Fighting Carla, Resident Evil 6. This isn't the best game in the series, I'll grant you, but when it comes to Resident Evil's signature over-the-top mutants, the Carla spores are definitely one of my favourite designs. Scary as I'm sure they would be in real life, the assorted blobby abominations that the series has thrown at us over the years have become gradually less effective over time, but the Carla spores were a rare home run. When Ada reaches the deck of Resi 6's aircraft carrier, she's somewhat surprised to see doppelganger Carla go all goopy-like and completely engulf the ship. And look, now she's a giant slimy face, and now the giant slimy face is all yellow teethy, and now the giant slimy yellow teethy face is chasing us down a corridor filled with giant slimy yellow teethy face slimy arms, and now I wish I'd never been born. Thank you, Capcom, you've left me with an irrational fear of yogurt. Number 3, Sister Act, Resident Evil 4. When we looked at the village battle earlier on, I didn't mention Dr. Salvador with his PhD in wearing potato sacks and using unnecessarily noisy chainsaws, and that was for 2 reasons. Firstly, I wanted to save all chainsaw-related chat until this entry in the list, and secondly, while he might be the most iconic of Resi 4's unlicensed lumberjacks, he's far from the most stressful to deal with, which is saying something. The Mercenaries minigame brings you face to face with an utterly demented giant of a man who wields, with its double-bladed configuration, what can only be described as the most unergonomic power tool ever conceived. According to the wiki, his official name is apparently Giant Chainsaw Man. And I won't argue with that, but for me, the most disturbing, traumatic, and all-out pant-poopingly terrifying chainsaw wielder encounter in this game is that of the Bella sisters. Coupled with their filthy clothes, bloody bandaged faces, and wide-eyed expressions, the fact that their name literally translates as the Beautiful Sisters is creepy enough on paper. But once you actually enter this godforsaken arena and realise you now have to deal with 2 chainsaw-toting loonies at the same time, you're all set to experience what it is to have the textbook opposite of an erection. Number 2, go tell Aunt Rhody, Resident Evil 7. While I have the greatest of respect and reverence for the elderly, one must admit that it takes very little to turn a sweet, world-wise grandma figure into a nightmarish hag. And though some players of Resident Evil 7 weren't remotely troubled by the constant presence of old Mrs. Baker, I absolutely was. Like, so much. From the very beginning of the game, I was totally convinced that sooner or later she was going to leap up out of her chair, give me a big shining corpse kiss, and probably pop a cheeky finger up my quivering sphincter while she's at it. Anytime she was in the room, I was completely on edge. And so upon exiting the basement and hearing this sound, I started the countdown to plops. As you round the corner, Granny, who until this point you may have assumed is completely oblivious to her surroundings, somehow knows to stop singing. Oh good, confirmation that she's very much conscious, and the only way I can go is through this little gap. Please don't grab me, please don't grab me, please don't grab me. Whew, okay, thank God. Oh, what? Is she singing again? How do you, what? Oh. Hey. And number 1, the Iron Maiden, Resident Evil 4. Alright, forget Granny's song. It is a creepy sound for sure, but my justification for putting the Iron Maiden at the top of this list could literally just be 60 continuous seconds of The Regenerador, localized to Regenerator in the English version of the game, is solid proof that Capcom doesn't need to add 12 limbs, 4 mouths, and half a ton of expired ham to every monster they create. Sometimes all that's necessary is to accentuate just a couple of features: giant toothy mouth, harrowing breathing sound, and the ability to regrow limbs. Great! Worst thing I've ever seen. But then, existing only to completely shatter your belief that this couldn't possibly be scarier, the Iron Maiden comes round for tea. That twitchy goddamn jaw ought to be enough, but this guy also wants nothing more than to pull you in for the worst cuddle of your life. Meeting the Iron Maiden has got to be one of the single most terrifying moments in the entire Resident Evil saga, and half the reason is the sound alone. And that's our list. Now who's got the collie wobbles? Let us know in the comments below if we missed anything out. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and if you want to support the things you enjoy, then check out the rewards on our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.